Más quiero. All right, everybody. It's good to see you all here tonight. And as I mentioned, tonight is the first professional development seminar of 2025. And I won't go into like the full background of what these seminars are, since those of you that are logged on Zoom are very familiar with them. But for anybody that is following along on the live streams, whether that be on YouTube or on Instagram, welcome first and foremost. And because this is being recorded, it will be uploaded to the Distill Arts YouTube channel in a couple of days, along with the last of the professional development seminars of 2024, which I apologize to everyone. I only just realized that I didn't actually upload it like I thought I did. So, just to kind of like get us all up to speed and everything on what we have covered up to this point, we will do a quick little review. But tonight's session will specifically focus on marketing and self-promotion. Feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat as well as we go along. But let's see what everybody remembers. What do y'all remember? Obviously, looking at the slide that you see here, what do y'all remember about the very first of the seminars, the one that was about being a business owner? I'm curious to see what y'all are still holding on to now that it's been a few months since that one. Anything on the slide here ring a bell, Dr. Rosie?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I remembered you repeated was the fact that because we are creating our brand and our name is our brand, we
Mhm.
really need to be cognizant of what we do out in the community and how we represent ourselves
Yeah.
because it'll come back to us. And so if we're trying to create a good, solid, strong brand, and then our names on it,
Mhm.
we need to be stay as professional and on a continuous basis. That stayed with me.
Yeah, that's definitely one of them, right? Because as you see here, right, you are creating a brand, and that includes your name, you as the artist, right? It's having that mindset that you need to treat your work and yourself in a manner that is professional facing out to the world, especially if we are talking about how you engage with the world, because being open to promoting yourself and your work is a major part of being a creative entrepreneur. But yeah, thank you, Dr. Rosie. Anyone else have anything that they remember from that particular session?
I'm I don't remember doing this at the beginning. Maybe I wasn't there or something, but what I'm looking at is the assigned value to your work.
Mhm.
And then I remember hearing you talk about this, but we've done this a couple of times in our history, right?
Yeah.
So, but my brain and my eyes, first I read value to your work, and I thought, okay, I could totally connect with that because a person has to, when they take on all these tasks, they
Mhm.
have to really connect with that belief in themselves with their art. And then you kind of maybe break through the bridges to start being able to do some of these financial things, promotion things, all the kind of maybe paperwork stuff, the budgeting that only for myself, I don't know if anybody else is like this, that just sort of gets in my way and overwhelms me and my brain all kind of almost shuts down.
Mhm.
But then I saw maintain records and budgets, and I thought, oh, yeah, I remember that part.
Yeah.
But value to your work is, I think, something that also has been um, lifted or shifted some sort of way from the day that we went to the Beyond Baroque.
Hmm.
It was, I think, something magical that happens with when you complete a task and you feel the beauty of the connection and with others of the artwork, the story that gets shared. And I I think that feeds a part of our soul that really thrust us forward in our art, whatever that is.
Mm.
So that's the kind of value to my work that is really important to me, that gives me the drive to do this stuff, because this kind of stuff is, I have to stay really focused. But it's also accepting my new self.
Mm.
Because when I stopped being into professional sociological journals and made a decision, I'm just going to go for the art in my life. I'm going to practice it. I'm going to meet people with it. You
Mhm.
know, it was like a very big shift. It was like almost doing another career on top of it. And then I retired, and it was a shift.
Mhm.
But all of this is what's getting us through it. And we've crossed the shore. And I think everybody just needs, if they've been through this before, then we all need that strengthening, that scaffolding to get us there, because this is new for us,
Mhm.
or some of
Yeah,
us.
for some of you, I'm sure that some of these concepts are familiar, and they might apply to your everyday job that you do, but for those who are maybe entering the creative world as an entrepreneur with the entrepreneur mindset, some of these things might be good refreshers, or they might be, new skills that you're starting to pick up. So
Yeah.
ultimately, the main idea with the first of the seminars that we did back in, I believe it was September, was that artists are business owners, no matter what type of art we practice, and really no matter who we work for, whether that be creating art for someone else or creating art for just ourselves, we are essentially business owners. And to understand that, we have to begin with our mindset, right? We have to start with a mindset that acknowledges the fact that we are business owners. And that's why these bullet points, these big ones that are underlined, they're the main points of that session. You're creating a brand. You have to assign value to your work. If you want to get paid, you have to be realistic about what your practice costs. Everybody has to pay for materials, for rent, for food, all of the big things that make us, capable of continuing in the practice.
Right.
And then promoting yourself and your work is obviously a really big one. And that's what we're going to focus on today. But it all begins with being proactive in your planning. So develop a business plan and regularly ask yourselves these questions. What are you good at, and how does that give you an advantage? Who is your audience, and what does your audience need? And then what do you love to do? What keeps you motivated? If you're able to answer these three questions periodically for yourselves, these things will help you continue to stay ahead of the planning curve, right? These are the primary questions that will always guide the decisions that you make as a business owner. And that even goes to doing things outside of the arts. If you're
Mm.
even operating something like a dry cleaning business, those things can be reflected in these same questions. The second seminar that we did back in, I believe this one was in at the end of October, was on developing a project.
Uh,
And for that one, we covered how to use a Google spreadsheet that I had created. And we talked about, I believe, just other things that you want to take into consideration when you are planning a project. Most projects will be kind of like a service that you're providing. And it depends on how you want to provide that service, whether it be as a product, as a type of deliverable, or if you want to do it as like, say, a workshop series, much as we do through like Conchas y Café as an example. But generally speaking, artist projects are done in three phases. They begin with you defining your goals for the project. They also will start with you assessing what you have and what you need in order to get that project going. And as a little reminder, there are three types of resources in this world. It begins with time. Time is a valuable resource. There's people, and their skills that they bring. Those are resources and assets that you have or that you may need to seek out, depending on the type of project. And of course, finances. right? Everybody, the almighty dollar rules, whether we like it or not. But when it comes to finances, I always like to remind people that a budget is a moral document. So as you think about that specific resource, your money that you have, if you create a budget in advance, as part of your planning process, that will help you determine what is really important and what could potentially be either outsourced or just kind of dropped from the project altogether because it's not going to really benefit your project in the long run. But over everything else, I really strongly encourage people to think about, finances in the sense of how much time they are allotting and money they are allotting for themselves and their own well-being. Your financial health is equally as important as your mental health and your physical health. All of those things work together to essentially push forward your practice as an artist. So really do consider how budgeting can help you maintain a strong mental health and physical health all together. And then evaluation, of course. Evaluation is going to happen all the time. You'll always be thinking about what is working for me and what isn't working for me. And then to finance projects, there's also, the grants and fellowships that we discussed, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on and how to apply to those. There's also fees and sales. So, you're selling a product, you're selling a service, you charge a fee. And that can obviously take a lot of different shapes as artists. And then there's also the idea of successful crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is much like gathering donations. It's going to happen and be successful, quote unquote, based on how you engage with your audience and telling the story that goes with the crowdfunding's main purpose, the goal for crowdfunding. And that does come back again to what we were saying before about promoting yourself, right? Marketing and promotion are always going to be something that exists within your practice as an artist. Does anyone have anything they want to add to the artist project development session as a reminder or as a takeaway that you remember from that time? If not, that's okay.
I think for me, the hardest part in the beginning is I liked how you framed it about our time. I know it's about the what I buy in paper or what I buy in inks or what I buy in pens or what I buy in, whatever.
Mhm.
But it's the time part for me. I get lost in it. I don't ever keep track of it. I can tell you a little bit about it, but when you really think about it, I think it's way too much time for a project, because if you, how can, I don't know, if you're, but at the same time, then I go to a show and I see paintings that are selling,
Mhm.
right? And it's helping them and they're doing well. I mean, putting things together for themselves.
Mhm.
But I'm learning to get over being shy about that.
Mhm.
But I know it's still a process for me and I haven't hung out. It's only been like the past year where I've seriously been hanging out with more art shows and works and values and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that part is always kind of like for me open for discussion because I'm not at a solid centered place with it. And I need to be.
Yeah. Carolyn?
Yeah, I can agree with the time. That is something that, like, since it's not like a tangible thing and you kind of, forget about it. I
Right.
think, on the photography side, I'm, still learning and I'm new to that field, but like the music side, I've been doing for like 10 plus years, like more like 13 years, I would say. And even yesterday, I had to like think about the time because like someone's hiring my partner and I to go do a show. And I was like, okay, like here's what that costs for us to go perform. But then this is like, there's a travel involved. And so I kind of had to like take a step back and say, wait a second, it's not here in LA, it's further away, and I need to account for that. And I had to like really think about, okay, that's going to be just a little bit of, extra cost on their end
Mhm.
to get us to go, to a remote location. So the time is like something that really has to like, I don't know, you really have to like think about that since it's not something that's tangible.
Right.
Yeah. And that is something that is obviously important for us to really remember when we're budgeting, if you think of it in the like traditional job sense, we most of us are going to be working like say 9 to 5, 40 hours a week types of jobs, at some point in our lives. And the reason why 40 hours a week kind of exists is because at some point in some history, it was determined that that was the appropriate amount of time that we need to be productive for a boss, ultimately. So, the beauty of being an artist is that we can kind of set our own schedules in that way, but at the same time, if we want to work within that more traditional time structure, then we need to really think about how that impacts our budget, because we need to earn a certain amount of money per hour worked if we're going to be looking at it on a larger scale, right? So budgeting, it can be, I think, useful in the long term, maybe a little overwhelming at first, but it helps you really determine what is the value of your work. And again, this particular seminar, when we did it, it was recorded, and I again apologize for not uploading the video sooner. I thought I had, and it wasn't only until just this week that I realized I didn't. So it will go up onto our Google Class along with the handouts for that session. I know that the live recording is up on our YouTube channel now, so you can always find it there. But we'll revisit that one again at a later time.
Hey, Luis, I think that there's another thing too that, we're talking about valuing ourselves
Mhm.
and all that, and we're that the bullet point about charging people to attend a workshop that we do. Um, I think there's a lot of hesitancy towards that, or we're not used to doing that,
Yeah.
and so it makes it a little, I think we hesitate to charge people or to charge what we're worth, our value, so I'm glad you're bringing all this up because now it's starting to remind me about the workshop that you've done, before, about how important it is to really value yourself and don't be afraid to say, this workshop is $200 because you're taking everything else into account, whatever you feel it's worth, but don't shortchange yourself. That's the main thing that I'm trying to say.
Right, exactly. It's really important that all of us as artists remember that, people pay for services that we provide all the time. There's no reason why us in this particular room, in this particular space right now, shouldn't be making that same amount of money.
Right.
Um, so, obviously for a lot of us growing up in a particular type of household, these might be semi-foreign to us, but I promise you that the more you think about your business and come with the mindset of being a business owner as an artist, the more these things will make sense and the more comfortable you will feel with charging X amount of money for someone's enrollment in one of your workshops in the future. And, a lot of times the reasons why people will gravitate towards your workshops have a lot to do with who you are as an individual. And as you see here in our quote, which comes from Ryan Lilly, who is an American business incubation professional, basically the type of person that goes around giving money to startup businesses. This person was quoted as saying, corporate and personal branding both require storytelling to be captivating. Stories provide context, meaning, and the opportunity for relationship.
Right.
Do y'all kind of agree with this? What are your thoughts about what is being said here by Ryan Lilly?
Is that why everybody's buying a Tesla?
Or burning their Teslas now.
That's promotional.
Mhm. I mean, generally speaking, I would say that this rings true in the sense of why people connect with you. And let me explain to you why I believe it's true. It begins with you answering this question. What are your personal values and beliefs? And how did those get formed? If you can answer this question for yourself, you're probably answering it in a very similar way as someone else in the room. And I do pose this question to all of you. Feel free to answer it if you feel comfortable answering it. But really think about this. What are your personal values and beliefs? And how did they come to be? What experiences did you go through? What experiences did you have growing up in your adolescent years, in your adult years, your young adult years? What lessons did you learn that now are manifesting in the values and beliefs that you carry today? The reason why I ask that is because it comes back to what is your story? How does it begin? Right? What is your origin? When we think about the reasons why we gravitate towards certain types of people, why we start to form communities, it has a lot to do with the fact that community itself is a human-centered action that occurs through the recognition of shared personal experiences. It's all about being human, right? It's all about being the same or similar as someone else, right? That's where community exists. And that a lot of times happens through commonalities and universalities, things that make us really see ourselves reflected in another person. I can say, at least speaking for myself, that I can relate with some of Abraham's background. We're not the same person, but we grew up in perhaps a similar household. We grew up under a similar cultural experience, and vice versa. I'm sure Abraham can see some elements of himself in me. There's a reason I like to believe why Abraham and I have worked together for so long now. I mean, it's been 10 plus years at this point that we've known each other and been collaborating with each other. So, and again, if you feel comfortable answering these questions, feel free. But what experiences are you comfortable with sharing that uniquely represent a common occurrence within your self-identified community? Carolyn?
I would have to say it's probably experiences that I did not have
Mm.
that are what's shaping the community that I'm in now. And maybe that was like, obviously, I mean, not obviously, but I work a lot with youth, with young women, gender expansive youth.
Mhm.
And I think, as a young queer person, I didn't have those resources. I didn't have those places to go to make community. So I think I look for those places now as an adult to be able to heal those wounds, or to be able to like kind of go back to like my younger self and be that person for the people that need that. So that's an experience that I wasn't able to have as a kid that I search for now and try to be that for other people that are growing up that maybe identify as being queer or gender expansive. And obviously, I mean, I identify as she, her, so for women as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that that's a great way to phrase it too, or a great way to look at it, right? Sometimes we form community because we don't have community when we're younger. I think I might kind of flip that on you a little bit though, Carolyn, and say, it's maybe because you didn't have that, then now you find other people that also didn't have that, and now that's your response, right? Because other people in your same group that you're working with, your peers, perhaps, I'm not, making a generality out of it, but there's a chance, right, that other people that you work with are also, coming from a similar background, and that they maybe didn't have the same sort of role models that you now hope to be for someone else. Um, But ultimately, I think what you're talking about is exactly what I'm saying about a sense of commonality, right? And universality. I know that I grew up in an environment where I didn't always see myself reflected in, the types of male role models that were around me. I grew up in a neighborhood where there were a lot of gangs, gang members that would just kind of hang out on the corner. And, their idea of what it meant to be Mexican ultimately, or Chicano in their particular case, was something that went against everything that I felt like I liked and I enjoyed. One experience in particular that I had was, wanting to learn how to skateboard. But because it was considered a white boy thing, the cholos in my neighborhood would stop other kids that around my age and break their skateboards if they were little Mexican kids. And, that turned me off. It scared me. And that lack of like diversity and acceptance ultimately made me have that reverse reaction where really I want to have an environment where we have a lot of, empathy for other people and we're open to, other journeys. Um, and that in that way, I'm trying to find some level of universality, right? In the end, I guess my point is, when you think about your experiences and you think about your origin story as the hero of your own story, what are some of the things that happen in your life or that have happened in your life that you could maybe turn into a universal story about just simply being human? When it comes down to it, a lot of us, there are some people out there in this world that might not fit within our concept of what a human is. Um, but we all have some fairly universal emotions and experiences that we go through. The feeling of being loved or the feeling of wanting to be loved, the feeling of, camaraderie with other people. Like those are things that are universally human. And if you can think about experiences that you have had as unique as they are to you, those experiences can be articulated in a way that other people will see themselves reflected in that.
Mm.
I know I've seen a lot of movies in the past and, listened to a lot of songs and experienced other things that maybe weren't exactly my story, but because of whatever immigrant story it was, or because of whatever story it was about a father-daughter or father-son relationship, like, I have those things. I can speak to those experiences for myself, and that's where I connected. Even if the characters were, white and affluent, like I was far from that, but I would still be able to connect with a universally told story, something that focused on the human aspect of community. So that's an important thing to think about as you think about how you market yourself and how you promote yourself and your brand. Also, it's about action, right? Community is about action and recognition. So, as part of that, you really want to think about how you're building and nurturing your relationships. What actions are you doing, are you taking to nurture and cultivate relationships in your storytelling, right? Because it's a two-way street. Community is a two-way street, whether that be on social media or in person, building a network of followers. You want to encourage reciprocity in the storytelling. You want to ask, hey, well, this is my story, but what happened to you? If you watch a lot of YouTube videos, you'll probably see that. A person will be talking about whatever they're reviewing or whatever thoughts they have on a topic, and they'll often say in the middle of their video, like and comment down below. What do you think about this? It's that small little action, right? That encourages people to actually participate with you. Those are little things that actually matter, and that's how community gets nurtured, especially in this digital age, which, let's face it, if you don't like being on social media, you kind of still have to be on some form of social media in order to tell your story. Because again, all of you are artists and all of you are entrepreneurs. This is just kind of one of the things that goes with being an entrepreneur. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about this so far? And I do thank you to those of you that have already shared so far. Just to kind of like reiterate or to sum up what I was just saying, technology allows you to curate your personal story. And it's really to the ends that you see here, right? You want to use it to create relationship building opportunities, and you want to use technology to articulate your core values, your brand, and even your personal values. Those things are going to be essential for your marketing and self promotion purposes. Yeah, Abraham?
That reminds me, I follow this architect who's always, giving tips of architecture and
Mm.
the business of it, as well as some fun. And he's really cool guy. But he's saying that one time this other, he said it's like so-called architect, wanted to fight him, and he's like, no, like I have these type of channels that I put myself into. It's not like somebody forced me to be on the social medias, right? So I
Mhm.
have this persona that I wanted to be for the community and for my image. So I was like, no, there's no way I'm gonna fight with you, whatever, right? Because again, he's trying to tell a story of
Mhm.
a professional person who is doing this channel, and he wants to keep it that way, right? So it's some of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, storytelling can, I mean, it really does become almost like a, ¿cómo les diría? Like it's so elemental to being human, telling stories. And we all want to tell a story, whether we're, very vocal about it or not, and sometimes it's you can even get to the point where we're like overlapping stories and we're trying to undercut each other's stories, which, that could happen as well. But ultimately, the thing about social media is that it's really designed to help you curate your stories and to help tell stories in a way that really reflect who you are and what message you want to convey, for better or worse. So, social media, right? The thing that everybody hates but loves at the same exact time. It's the paradox. Ultimately, it is the storyteller's best friend. I would bet you, a small wager that, yeah, la tóxica. I would bet you a small wager that the most viral people are viral more because of the stories they tell and the way they tell their stories than, people that are just posting like, hey, we have a call for submissions, check it out. Like, those kinds of posts can get your information out there, but this post that tells a story is going to be the post that has the most engagement.
Mm.
That's kind of the thing about social media. It's about engagement. You want people to really interact with you on a one-on-one level if possible. But marketing is more about the strategy, right? It's the strategic means that you use for telling your story. So stories can be told not only through social media, but they can also be told through things like newsletters or e-newsletters. There are services like MailChimp, as an example, which help you send emails, mass emails to large groups of people. And that is one way in which you can connect with people on a more personal level. But it's also a good way for you to talk about, hey, these are the things that are coming up. These are updates on, my next workshop series or my next reading that I'm doing. If you're selling products, you could say, hey, I got this sale going on right now. Check it out. All right. We all get those marketing emails all the time. And MailChimp is a good tool that can help you get going. Uh, yeah, MailChimp should start sponsoring us now, but we actually stopped using MailChimp because it ended up being cheaper to use the current one that we use now, which is Square. But that's
Well, Square, hear us out.
exactly.
Mhm.
Um, But and yeah, we use Square for a lot of things, including our payroll, our marketing now. We use it for sales on our website. They host our website. Square is the jam.
Being a square is
Hashtag,
cool now.
yeah, hashtag sponsored by Square. But storytelling can even happen through advertisements. Think about like the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl ads that are coming up. They're obviously designed to market a particular product or service, but Super Bowl ads are so special and unique in the way that they are created. The majority of them are narratives. Every commercial tells some kind of story, even the ones that are for pharmaceuticals. They try to weave in a narrative so that you can connect with the people, right? That are either like you or similar to you, and by proxy, living the life you want to live, right? And of course, marketing does include also the concept, the age-old concept of the word of mouth, right? If you give a person the opportunity to feel heard and seen and respected by participating in either your workshops, by, giving them a very positive purchasing experience, they're going to tell someone. And by telling someone, that could potentially lead to you having more customers, more participants in a future workshop, etc. So word of mouth really does still exist. And it is always going to be a good, positive way to build a community because it matters. Yeah. The reason many watch the game is because of the Super Bowl ads. That is correct, Abraham. Um, so marketing, when you think of marketing, it's all about the strategic means, right? Whereas self-promotion is really more about how you tell your story, right? It's the ability to tell your brand's story. So self-promotion is essentially a crafted story that is used to sell anything, whether it's the purpose of your product, your brand, the brand image, all of that stuff. It's a deliberate curation of branded content. So, marketing is the tools you use, self promotion is the curated story that you tell. And if you want to think of it in this way, you can also think of self promotion as the tool that you use to make your brand desirable. And this is one of the three different concepts of design thinking that we will touch on again later. But it is all about being desirable, right? Self-promotion equals desirability of your brand. And it kind of ties into, obviously, how you tell the story, right? So here we actually created this little spreadsheet or this little table a couple of years ago when we first started offering this particular seminar. And every year since we've been doing it, we've been updating these statistics, these figures. And I would say that worldwide, the four platforms that you see here, these are the ones that are probably still the most used. We're talking about X or Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. So those are the main four. Those are like the big four social media platforms. And it's really important when you think about how you're going to tell your story that you really pick the platform that is best for telling your story. And even though TikTok right now is kind of saved from the chopping block, um, it's still, I think, a really important sort of like an important tale, an important allegory for us to learn from. Because if you notice, the average user on Twitter or X, they're on there for about 30 minutes a day. Facebook and Instagram, it's about the same, about 33 minutes per day. But if you look at the number for TikTok, the average TikTok user is on TikTok for up to 95 minutes a day. And I'm sure that would be similar to Redno as Carolyn is mentioning there. Um, but that's kind of amazing if you think about it. The heaviest users of TikTok spend an hour and a half, a feature length film wise, of time on that social media platform. And what's most interesting, if you look at all of these different platforms, the majority of users are male in almost all cases. 68.7% of users on X are male. 54.8% on TikTok are identify as male, compared to 45.2% female. Facebook, 56.8% are male, whereas 43% are female. And then Instagram is a little bit closer to being 50-50. It's 50.6 male, 49.4% female. So, it says a lot about who tends to use these platforms. And if we look at the age groups, I would say that you could pretty much guess that it's all younger people, right? Younger people tend to make up the majority of all social media. Um, and I'm saying between the ages of 18 to 34, like those are pretty much the main user bases, largest demographics. But it is wild when you think that when you take into consideration that people spend an hour and a half daily on TikTok. There's some other interesting facts here, like video posts on X or Twitter get 10 times more engagement. And if you use a hashtag challenge on TikTok, your post will get probably 5 times more engagement. If you're using Facebook in particular, in-app video posts have a 600% greater interaction rate. Now, what I mean by in-app means that if you actually open and use the Facebook app itself to upload a video, those posts are going to get the largest amount of interaction. There are other tools that you can use to post on your behalf, like Hootsuite or MailChimp. Those are apps that can connect to Facebook, and you can post to Facebook through those other apps so that you never have to be in that toxic environment that is Facebook. But if you post a video through those apps, your video will probably not get the same amount of traction as if you had opened up the actual Facebook app. Exactly as Carolyn says, organically uploading is better. And that's pretty true for all of these different platforms, but it's not always going to be the case, depending on which service you're using to help you manage your social media. Because in a lot of ways, it's more about the interactions that you engage with. So with Instagram, same, as far as video goes, video content has a 38% higher engagement rate than static posts, than just images on Instagram. And this one I thought was interesting. On Instagram, 87% of users will take action, such as visiting a website after viewing a brand's post. So a lot of people, when they see a post that is usually a video post that encourages people to visit a website on Instagram, you are pretty likely to have people actually follow through and take action on your call to action when it comes to Instagram. Anyone have any thoughts so far on the big four here?
I just heard some other company was basically copy and pasting other people's content,
Mhm.
and they even had more reach than those people's because they already have an established website or something. And again, they know how to tag things and do all these little linking things.
Mhm.
And well, try to sue them, but like that's how crazy it has become, right? This is monetary system.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason why I didn't add Blue Sky to this particular graph that we see here, or the one on the next page, is because it's still so relatively new that a lot of this data just hasn't been captured yet for Blue Sky. But as Jamie pointed out, video is definitely what makes people more like want to interact more. I mean, again, what is TikTok other than just a bunch of random videos being so-called random videos being presented to you, right? It's I mean, people love their little short videos, right? So yeah, in general, video posts will get the most engagement uh overall. If anyone is on Blue Sky, though, in the group, you're more than welcome to tell us what your experience is like. But to think about some of the other apps that exist out there that are common, there's also LinkedIn, Pinterest, Snapchat, and of course, the University of YouTube. LinkedIn is interesting because, as most people know, LinkedIn is designed specifically for professionals. It's a social media network that is really meant to drive business to business interactions. So if you think of like your services as an artist, your specialties, if you are the kind of person who has maybe a lot of thoughts on art and writing and other things that are related more to critique, you could potentially present yourself as a thought leader on LinkedIn, right? You could offer your services as a speaker or as a reader for universities, for other, secondary, maybe even primary schools using LinkedIn. It is interesting to note that actually, I shouldn't say usually, but there are more men who use LinkedIn as their primary social media platform, just like all of the other ones. But it is, I mean, 50% of users that are between the ages of 25 to 34 years old. So we're talking about young professionals, people that are just kind of getting their professional careers started. And of those users, 40% of them log on daily. So that's a lot of people actually using LinkedIn. Again, primarily for business to business interactions. And, that could mean if you have, like I said, like a service as a speaker, you could potentially use that as a way to generate an income, by offering your services as a speaker, as a presenter. Pinterest, as Abraham noted earlier, is predominantly female. Of the genders that people identify with on Pinterest, 70% are female, which means that the
Wow.
remaining 30% are either male or unspecified. So people that don't identify as either gender. I mean, that's pretty interesting if you think about it.
Is
Yeah. And their largest user base is the 25 to 34 year olds. So the younger millennial and
mm,
the, slightly older Gen Z. Um, 30%, 30.5% of users on Pinterest are within that age range. And 46% of weekly users discover new products on the platform, which is interesting because 85% of users will make a purchase based on the content they find on Pinterest.
mm.
So it is an interesting one to think about as you consider which social media platform may be best for you to tell your stories. Um, and Snapchat, on the other hand, is almost exclusively very young people. So if you want to be kind of like on the cutting edge of what's cool with all the kids, Snapchat is the place to be. I mean, its primary user base is between the ages of 13 to 24, and that's 60% of users. And they actually log on daily. So the kids love their Snapchat and they go on there daily. What I also found really interesting when it comes to Snapchat is obviously it's also primarily female here, 55%, but over 20 million users engage in mental health support content. So it's interesting to see that not only is Snapchat primarily serving teenagers, but those teenagers are on there because they are looking for mental health resources. So
Mhm.
if your programs or if your art or if your practice somehow incorporates mental health and you have the desire because it's part of your values to work with youth, to work with children, that might be the place to go. that might be the place where you can kind of advertise your services or, encourage young people to, I don't know, engage in the content that you're creating. Especially if you're working in multimedia. That's one of the things that really sets Snapchat apart from other social media platforms. It's very heavy on interactive augmented reality. Those tools that they have as part of their interface make it really easy for people to engage with artwork that you create kind of in a more tech-based way. So if that's one of the things that you're interested in exploring, Snapchat, again, might be one of the places to go. And then when it comes to YouTube, like I jokingly called it the University of YouTube, but I mean, almost 100% of Gen Z reported that they use YouTube on a regular basis. 96% of people within that age demographic. And the largest age demographics include Gen Z and millennials, respectively. And the gender breakdown is almost equal as well. But if you look at it, every time that someone logs onto YouTube, they're on there for about 40 minutes a day. 40 minutes per session, I should say. So that's a pretty substantial amount of time. And if you're part of that YouTube group, just like I'm part of that YouTube group, I enjoy me some YouTube, especially in the evenings after work. Like it's a way for me to unwind. But I mean, it's a very real, very active social media network that actually, when compared to all of the other social media networks, that is the one social media platform that has probably the highest positivity rankings when it comes to surveys.
Mm.
5 to 10 hours plus. Wow, no, that's I could see that in a week. I could see that in a week.
Don't
But yeah,
encourage him.
what's that?
Don't encourage him.
Uh, it's also really interesting to see it actually in statistics when I was doing the research for tonight's session. 40% of all users make purchases after seeing products on YouTube. And I know for a fact that I am one of those people. I fall into that 40% because I love watching me some reviews because I want to know for a fact that what I want to purchase is a good purchase.
The fact.
The fact.
Right.
I want to see it in action. I want to see people using it and I want to see what people think about it before I make
Right.
a final decision,
Yes.
right? Goes back to what I said before, word of mouth.
Yeah.
If you think of YouTube in that way, YouTube is 100% word of mouth when it comes to reviews and people's purchasing options. So YouTube might be within some of your futures. If not as content creators, as content purchasers.
Mm.
So, any questions so far? Or any thoughts? Anything that really stood out to you?
As homework, everybody has to have all these apps on their phones now.
100% of non-binary folks are in the Void platform. I agree with Carolyn. I'm in the hell's nah category of all these apps being on my phone, even though unfortunately, because of being a business owner, at some point I have had all of these apps, minus Snapchat. That's the only one that I just did not get into. But sometimes it's good to experiment, understand what is out there until you find the one that's for you. And it also helps to ask yourself this question. When it comes to socializing, are you more introverted or extroverted? Because as we saw, certain types of posts get more interaction, more engagement than others. And that might be because of people's general personality, right? If they're extroverted and they kind of present themselves in an extroverted manner, that might end up making them go viral, right? It might make them that much more popular on a particular platform. If you're more introverted, if you're more reserved, that doesn't mean that social media isn't for you. It just means that you need to find the one that really works for your personality and for your storytelling method.
Mhm.
Extra soft? Is that what you're saying, Abraham? You're extra soft? I immediately thought of Charmin. All right. So here's one thing that I think is good for everyone to know, right? A couple of years ago, Abraham, myself, and Angie went to the Adobe Max conference here in LA, and all of us went to a couple of different of workshops that Adobe put on. But one of them in particular that both Angie and I went to was presented by a social media influencer. And their number one tip, which I thought was very interesting and I thought was totally accurate when it comes to social media, is to be a specialist. Don't overdo it. Really focus on the one platform that speaks to you and your storytelling method the most. Expand to other social media platforms only if it makes sense to do so, but really develop your following on one platform. Dedicate your time and your skills because remember, those are resources, right? And in a lot of cases, they're limited resources, time and, your really time more than anything, but your skills too can play a factor in that. Um, Develop the platform that really works best for you. And then in addition to that, only use one branded account per platform. Don't have multiple accounts like we used to have with our Art Block Zine account on Instagram. And we do still use Artistic Zine, but that one is managed by our managing editor, Naomi. So that one is being managed by one individual. But between me and Angie, we are managing the primary Distill Arts account, and really try to have just one single branded account per platform. If you do end up using multiple social media platforms. But really know your demographic, right? Really know your audience and your community and which method of engagement is their preference. For some people, it might be easier for them to engage with static content. If you're working with people who use e-readers or who use other assistive technologies to help them engage with social media, videos may not be the best. And if you are using video, make sure that you add captions, right? Really think about who your demographic is and why they gravitate towards the specific type of content that they gravitate towards. It really does help you in knowing where to invest your time and your finances when it comes to creating ads, when it comes to creating content, and really when it comes to just knowing how to engage with people and establish that reciprocal relationship that in the end everybody really wants, whether they know it or not, actually. Now, what team are you on? If you know yourself and your social style and your audience, you know what platform is going to work best for you. Carolyn right away answered IG, and I could agree with that because I know Carolyn is a photographer. IG, Instagram, was originally a photo-based app. And even though video posts do still get the majority of views, there are still ways to create static content that uses elements of video and moving type, right? Um, there's other apps that I will recommend that you also look into to help you create your content, but absolutely. If you know that Instagram is your jam and that is the way that people interact most with you and your content, then definitely use it. MySpace. MySpace. I remember good old MySpace. But yeah, Nabor, I mean, if MySpace is still your thing, the last I checked, it was really more for musicians, um, but yeah, Tumblr is a good way to create blogs and that kind of thing. Um, Oh, it's sad to hear that Vero is glitchy. I remember when that was going to be the big alternative to
I'm
Instagram.
still waiting for it. It's just I guess the images are huge, and that's probably why it lags a little sometimes on my phone. The computer works better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there are other platforms out there. Discord is interesting in that it gives you a great way to communicate with other people. I'm not 100% familiar with it, but it is also a technically a social media platform. And if that is how you can get your content out to the world, then absolutely take advantage of that. Um, Twitch, I know Twitch is commonly used for video game streaming. So, and for streaming of other content, live streaming specifically. Um, yeah, stream your art process. Yeah, exactly. You can. I mean, there are people that use TikTok as just like, something that's on in the background as they work. I know that that is one thing that people use TikTok for. When you go on Instagram Live, you can still use that to live stream yourself painting or yourself writing. Um, Newspapers are still a thing. Abraham, might be joking about it, but there are also other social media platforms that act as a type of newspaper. Flipboard is an example of one. It's basically your own custom magazine that you get to make and you can share. It's how can I call it? It's kind of like you pull together resources and other articles and interesting things, very similar to Pinterest, but you then put it together into a magazine, a digital magazine that you can then share with people.
Hmm.
So that is a possible way to create a sense of community with people who might have similar interests as you. So there are other alternatives out there that go beyond just the main four. Again, it comes down to who you are, what your storytelling method is. If it's the gathering of other things that inspire you to then share in like a zine or a magazine kind of platform, then that's your social media platform, right? That is the way for you to get your message out there and for people to connect with you and enjoy the conversation that they get to have with you. Now, again, marketing and self-promotion are an investment. This is part of being a business owner. And like I said before, there is a particular concept out there called design thinking that uses three specific concepts to help us approach different types of problems. And we'll talk about it more when we talk about actually designing a website. But this does apply to other areas of our life, including marketing and self-promotion. It's an absolute investment of time and resources when it comes to marketing and self-promotion, but it comes down to the concept of being desirable, right? You want your particular message, your story, your brand, more than anything, to be desirable, right? You want it to be something that people can connect with because of its human-centeredness, right? It puts you at the center of the brand, and that is why your story is going to be what creates the community to begin with, right? So when you're thinking about which platform works for you, think about which one gives you the best tools to create that human-centered experience for others. And always try to really, curate the story so that it reflects who you are, what your values are, what your beliefs are. That's how you can then really elevate the desirability of wanting to connect with you in one way or another. It's also really important to think of feasibility, right? What is within your reach, given the limited resources that we all have, and what is viable, right? When you pick the platform that works best for you, think about how you can maybe invest a little bit of cash here and there in paid ads if that works for you. If that doesn't work for you, then which way can you get the most organic engagement? Those kinds of things really do matter. And because it is a long-term investment, think about how much you invest and how much you return over the time that you are using that particular platform. Yeah, you could always pay actors, as Abraham does, and you can definitely hire a street team if that is part of your strategy.
But I do my own stunts.
There you go. Abraham will pull stunts, that's for sure. It's also really good though, when you think about the platform that you're choosing, to think about the future, right? Really have your 5-year plan mapped out as part of your business plan. What works for you today might not work for you 3 years from now. And if it still does work for you 3 years from now, maybe there are additional add-ons that you could then start using that the platform offers, like purchase links, um, the ability to create paywalls. If a person wants to, join your community through a membership uh, plan, things like YouTube offer that. Things like Patreon can also serve in that same capacity. And Patreon, I believe, connects with other platforms like Discord, if I remember correctly. So, there's definitely an opportunity there to grow your platform as time goes by. And it does help a lot when you plan for those things very early on. There's a reason why everything that we do now is powered by Square, because I remember very, very early on, it was like the very first years that Square was available for credit card processing. And they were already laying the groundwork for them to eventually become what they are today, a credit card processing platform, a web hosting platform, a marketing platform, and of course, a payroll platform. Yeah, Square, it's time to sponsor us. Exactly.
Yeah, what are you guys waiting in Square? Come on.
But it really does help though, all joking aside, it really does help to think about how you want your creative business to flourish, right? Because that is all part of being an entrepreneur. It's about having that business mindset of you will find success and your work will flourish so long as you plan for it and you build the pathway for yourself to see that happen. So, a couple of tools that might help you in your marketing planning anyway. They include things like MailChimp, like I said earlier. It's a newsletter platform that also includes social media integration. So you can use MailChimp to post to Facebook, to Instagram, and I believe to Twitter as well. I don't think they have connectivity to TikTok yet, but you know, that may or may not happen at this point. It is free, which is good to start with. And it's free up to 500 contacts the last time that I saw. And you can send up to 1,000 monthly emails with the free plan, unless if that has changed recently. You can also pay the membership plans, which will then allow you to schedule social media posts in advance. With the free plan, I think you can do social media cross posting, but only on your like immediately. You can't schedule it in advance, if I remember correctly. And they kind of have like a pay as you go model. So if you reach more than 500 contacts, but it's less than 1,000 contacts, then I think the fee for using their service is only a little bit more than if you're under the 500 and you're sending more emails. Basically, if you want to learn more about MailChimp, check them out at their website. Um, then, as far as creating content, you can also use things like Canva, which will help you with creating like images and videos that are easy to export for social media. Um, the thing about Canva that I've noticed is that Canva, although it is a very solid app and website, there are certain limits to, like, let's say you want to create a book or a zine. the actual resolution of the videos and the resolution of the static images is not exactly the highest. It's really just for the web. So if you're going to be printing things, especially if you're going to design, like let's say a logo that you want to then turn into like say a t-shirt, kind of like what I'm wearing right now with the Distill Arts logo, you really will be limited by Canva's free version. So if you pay the fee, the monthly $15, you then get the full resolution of, for print quality. So that's the one thing about Canva. On the other hand, there is Adobe Express, and Adobe Express does have a free version that allows for video and photo editing with some AI generated content credits. So you can use generative AI through Adobe Express up to a certain degree. And what I like about Adobe Express is that you can actually use it to schedule posts for one social media account, which, as I said before, it's always good to start with a single social media account that is for your brand that you can, build your following with. So if you want to use something without having to log on to the native app like Instagram or Facebook, you can potentially connect it to your Adobe Express account and then manage your social media that way. Of course, they do offer a paid version that starts at $10 a month, and that gives you a lot more credits for generative AI stuff. And it also gives you uh, print ready files. Um, Even the free version gives you print ready files, but with Adobe Express, it's a lot more. Plus, you also have access to a lot, and I mean a lot, of stock photos and videos that you can use as part of your content creation. So Adobe Express is definitely a very good option, in my opinion. And we are Adobe affiliates. So just to be, transparent about that, if you go to the Distill Arts website under the donate tab, there is donate and support. There you can actually click on any of the Adobe links. And if you sign up as a new member for Adobe Express, at no additional cost to you, Distill Arts will get a small little kickback, a little royalty for every person that signs up for Adobe Express through our affiliate links. So, not exactly sponsored, but Square could learn a thing or two. So, what are your brand's values, goals, and mission? This is a good way for you to start when it comes to preparing to market and self-promote yourself, your brand, your creative business. And when we go into the website design, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the tools that you could potentially use for building out a website. But yeah, Carolyn mentioned Squarespace. Squarespace is a good, easy, simple drag and drop tool that you can use to build a website. And Hostinger, I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure that's probably a pretty simple way to build a website as well. And then I'll even share with all of you how the Distill Arts web platform works if y'all want to learn that. Sounds German. Hostinger. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it seems easy, Carolyn. So, again, ask yourself this question. What are your brand's values, goals, and mission? And think about how you want to express that, how you want to share that particular story. If you need help figuring that out, I created this little Venn diagram to kind of help you all really think about how those things overlap. Your personal values and your beliefs are absolutely going to inform your brand values and the goals that you have for your brand. But there's that area where they overlap that can become your organization's mission and the story of why your organization, why your business exists, why you as an artist are creating the artwork that you are creating and working to serve the people that you want to serve. Those are the reasons why we start our our creative entrepreneurial efforts to begin with. It's because there's something that is missing in this world that we know that we want to share. So if you think about that, you can see how that can inform the way in which you tell your story as a business owner. Now, with that, I will leave you with a small little homework here. This is for you to do if you want, as part of our program now, you can workshop your mission statement and story with us. But, this is something that uh, we don't really anticipate you bringing every week, the way that you bring in your manuscripts for your first chapbooks. But continue developing your brand's mission statement and story, and establish a brand specific social media strategy using any of the insights you gained today. And for anybody watching out there on the YouTube University live stream or the Instagram live, you can always find more information about our programs at distillarts.org. Of course, we do invite you to follow us on all the social medias that matter using @distillarts. And if you have any questions and you want to reach out, you are welcome to email any one of us. Myself is, Luis Antonio Pichardo. You can reach out to Luis at distillarts.org. Abraham, our master teaching artist, you can contact at Abraham at distillarts.org. And Angie Angelica Castañeda, she can be reached at Angelica at distillarts.org. So, any questions or comments from all of you amazing artists that we are very privileged to be mentoring? Comments, notes, feedback for us? Anything that we missed? Or concerns? They are, comments. Yeah, I could see it being an info overload. Well, if there are no questions or comments or anything like that, we are obviously available here to continue answering questions later on. Chapbooks are due tomorrow, y'all. Yeah, don't forget to submit. Yeah, I mean, you're obviously in this program because you are hoping to turn this into a career. And, the Poet Artist Development Program is really designed to teach you some of these skills as we go. The seminars are only a part of it. We will be offering another session later in the month of February where we can check in, and I'm more than happy to give you one-on-one pointers on things that come up as part of this particular session or any of the previous sessions as well. And we are obviously here for you even beyond the program if you do decide later on to more formalize your creative practice as a creative entrepreneur. So, don't feel like you have to have any questions or all of the answers now. Those are things that you will develop over time, and we will always be here to provide you with whatever guidance we can. And again, if y'all don't have any questions, then, you're welcome to bring them up later on if they do come up. And for the people who are watching the recordings or Instagram Live now, y'all are welcome to reach out specifically on YouTube. You can always comment on YouTube and I'll do my best to answer comments, questions there in the comment section of our YouTube channel. And for those of you in the Poet Artist Development Program, this particular recording will go up to, it will be posted on our classwork tab of Google Classroom, along with the handout that we covered sometime later this week. All right. So, yes, you're welcome, Eric. I hope y'all don't have too much of an information overload. We again, I'm more than happy to break things down a little bit further with you if you want later on. But I do hope y'all have a great rest of your night. I really appreciate you all listening and participating. So take care, everybody. We will see you all next week. Peace.